You guys use fonts. We all use fonts. We're designers, we're creatives, we're bombarded by them every day. It's confusing, like the licensing of fonts. And the pricing of fonts are huge, especially if you get a full font family. They're massive, they're expensive. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can design your very own sans serif and serif typeface, either professionally or as a beginner. This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Right here in Illustrator, I've got a typeface, a font called Lockdown. And within this font, I've got many different weights that you can use, including an italic version and a black or heavy italic version, which is yet to be fully kerned. Designing fonts is difficult and a lot of people don't really understand how to, but the tools and equipment available to us nowadays means that any designer in the world who is interested can actually start designing fonts for professional use. So how did I get to a point where I had a font like this that was nicely kerned? How did I design all of the letterforms so that when it scaled down, it was guessed pretty well. The hinting is there and it doesn't look crazy. It's legible and it reads really well. Well, I'm going to be answering these questions today in this quick video. So number one, you're probably wondering how you can design a font, and there's two ways that you can, or one way, but two different things you can do to make a font. The first way is directly inside of Adobe Illustrator. We're here with Adobe Illustrator, and this is the font here. I did not design these letterforms in Adobe Illustrator. I'll talk to you a bit more about how I design these fonts later on. But basically, there's an app inside of Illustrator that I've talked before called fontself. So all you have to do is buy the fontself app, which I'll link down below, go to extensions and bring up fontself maker. You should get this big dialog box that pops up, and it is as simple as clicking and dragging your font that you've designed in Adobe Illustrator over to here. You've literally got a font that is mapped now, mapped font. But you don't know how to letter space and do the kerning of this. So the best way of doing it is pressing Smart, set your max space around, so your side bearings basically, and just press Smart, space and kern, and you have a font here. Wow. You can save this font, change the info, you can add all sorts of different types of glyphs inside of here. Now the second way is for more of a professional designer. So if you're someone who is interested in designing fonts and doesn't know what app to use or how to really get started, then I'm going to show you right now. This is the app called Glyphs. This app allows me to create fonts directly inside of it, each letter form, and it's got a load of tools that help font designers. If I double click into here, you can see that I've got the letter N, and I created this letter N inside of this app called Glyphs. The great thing about Glyphs is that the app is designed for you to design and create letter forms. So it's got all the tools that you need. It can look kind of confusing and a bit weird, but it's not. I'm going to roll into how to actually create the letter N in a font in a few minutes, but let me give you some rules that you need to follow when creating a font. Rule number one, always start with the N. Professional type designers, which I am not, I am just a logo type designer that dabbles in font design. I've got lots to learn, but professional type designers always start with the letters N and O. The letter N and O are the letter forms that give you an idea of what your font can look like. Because a font isn't a design of multiple different letters, spending ages crafting loads of different letters, it's actually a system where you use elements and components of one letter for another one. It means that the letter N has a lot of the components of other letters. Let me explain. The letter N is the same as the letter M, aside from the letter M has another overarch, and it's slightly thicker here at the connector line. And this is for balance. All of these stems are at the same width all the way across, even to the top part here. They're all the same width no matter where we go. And that is what a font system is. Once you've created the letter N, you could create the letter H, you can create the M, you can create a U, you can create an I, and from all of those different things, you create a system. Give me a like if you're still with me. Before I go any further, I just want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video, not only because they're sponsoring it, but because they can help you do better in font design. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators and people that want to do better and learn more skills. All the way from graphic design to cooking, photography, hand lettering, sketching, client management, anything that's a skill that you want to learn, you'll probably find it on Skillshare, taught by professionals in their field. I'm going to link down below in the description to a Skillshare class that will help you learn a bit more about font making, and it's all about creating a hand-drawn look font, so it's a bit easier to get started with. There's no ads or anything, it's curated specifically for learning. The first 1,000 people to click the link down below in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare. So go ahead, click the link, and then after the free trial, it's less than $10 a month on an annual subscription basis. And with that, you get to watch as many classes as you like. Okay, so part 2 of the video, let's talk about designing a letter form. We're going to use Glyphs for this, but it's the same inside of Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to create a new document like I've got here, and I'm going to go to the letter N. Double click on N and you'll see we've got this weird sort of look. I'm going to show you, this is basically the place to design the M. You've got all your shape stuff up here. You've got the pen tool, you've got your select tool, you've got your knife tool, pencil tool, don't use the pencil tool. You've got your square, if you hold on that, you get your circle as well. And down here, we've got metrics. Metrics are basically the side bearings, and we'll talk about that later, but it's basically the space in between a certain letter. On here, we can see our X height, we can see our overshooting up here, so this sort of like yellow line is the overshoot, which I'll talk about. Up here we've got our ascender and then our descender, and if you press Command I or go to the font info, you will see in the masters section where you can change all of these. A big one that we'll be using is L, which is the measurement tool over here. And this basically allows us to measure everything. It's great. So let's say I want to create a new font and I've got some inspiration for like a decomposed serif. So what I'm going to do is go up to my square up here. I'm going to draw out a rectangle, making sure that it fits quite nicely, and boom, there we go. Now you'll notice inside of Glyphs app, which this is not Glyphs mini, this is the full one, that when I press spacebar, it shows it in black. There's no way of changing the color because it's not about that. Fonts are black and white, and this is basically outline mode. You design and pen everything into outline mode. Let's go ahead and see how fat this is. That is 100 points across. If we double click on it, we can select the whole shape. If we click on it once, we can select one stem and just move that around. If we can select the anchor points or the nodes, and you can see that all of these look a bit different. This means that this is the starting node and it comes down like this.
Wow.
Now in Illustrator, you might not be able to measure this, but there's a tool in Astute Graphics that you can use to measure it if you so desire. So the next thing I want to do is create the shoulder. And this is where we can have some sort of ideas as to what we can do with the font. This is where the character is going to come in and you'll start to see it. So what I'm going to do is go to my pen tool, which is just up here. Just like in Illustrator, hold shift to keep all these anchor points the same, but I'm going to go ahead and drag these out up here, and I'm going to press V to get to my selector tool, making sure these are okay. You'll notice that Glyphs doesn't have a rubber banding effect with the pen tool, which means that you can see where the curve is going to go and what it will look like. That's because it's all about fonts, and Glyphs is very powerful for fonts. What we can do is down here, if I start to create a curve like this and pull it out, it will create the curve on the other end. If I don't pull it and I just create another dot, it's just going to have it as a straight line. So I'm going to click here, roughly bring something down over here, and I'm only going to rough this out. It's basically just like sketching. I'm going to do this, bring that up, sketch that back up there. Bring this down here, bring that up, move this into here, and I'm going to close the shape. Now that shape looks awful, and there's a few reasons why. Go ahead and double click on this, which will select the whole shape, go to paths, correct path direction, and it will correct this, so it won't be taken away from this stem here. What I'm going to do is double click this, press Command C, Command V to copy and paste it, and I'm going to drag it over here so it kind of fits there. Double click, bring that down a bit, because that's what I'm going to use for the end stem. Now in font design, it's super important to keep everything consistent, and that's why we're just having a bit of fun with the letter N. So what we need to do is go ahead up here, click this node, and it's green and a circle because that means it's a smooth node. It's not a corner one like this where it's just flat. We've got an actual curvature, so it's going to show us that by giving us a green node. And I'm going to pull this handle out, I'm going to pull this handle out, I'm going to drag this down and basically just have some fun with it. I'm going to make sure the counter, the space that's negative in here, here looks nice as well. So there's none of these bumps. And we can do this in a few different ways by just playing around with these anchor points here. For anyone that wants to learn more about how to use the pencil, there's another video that I'll link down below. I'm going to drag this across and just keep playing with this until it works and looks nice. So this shoulder is coming together quite nicely. Then all I'm going to do is drag this up till it reaches somewhere like this, but you can see it doesn't actually fit, but no worries, we can just zoom in, select this, and I'm going to drag this over one point, and I'm going to select this anchor point and make sure it fits over to this one. I'm going to drag these down a tiny bit so we have a better curve going on. So we've got basic sans serif N, but I'm going to give it a serif look by concaving the sides. So easily done. I'm going to press Option, and I'm going to click on the sides here, and I get these sort of handles that pop up. So I've created like a curve. Now the great thing about Glyphs inside of this app is that I can select multiple handles and do things with them. So I can actually select them. In Illustrator, you can't do this, so you'll need to use guides. So I'm going to select these handles, hold Shift, and just right arrow space to the right. I'm going to set this handle and do the same thing, which is going to create this sort of look there. And I'm going to bring this back out a bit. And that has given us this sort of concave look. Now it's a bit too thin now, so I'm just going to select this whole line by just clicking on it. You'll see that it's selected, and I'm going to just move it to the right, so make it a bit bigger. I'm going to select both of these shapes here. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to match it up correctly. And there we have a basic serif N. It's not really a serif, it's more sans serif, but because we've created this concave look, it looks like there's serifs on the side. Now that we've created the letter N, we could create the letter O, but I'm going to go ahead and create the letter I very simply by just copying and pasting. There are other ways of doing this inside of Glyphs called components, and every sort of font is a system with components in it. I'll talk about that in another video if you're interested, so subscribe down below. All I'm going to do is double click on this part here, because this part, the stem here, is going to be the master for the I. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it, press I on my keyboard, double click inside of it, paste it, drag it to the middle for now. I'm going to create by going to the circle, a nice dot on the I, and I'm going to scale it proportionately using my eye to how I like it. And I'm going to change the letter spacing around it, so we've got that. And there we go, we've got the N and the I. Now the great thing about Glyphs is that I can keep going N-I, N-I, and I can write it out like this all the time once I've done all of my different glyphs. So let's recap. This is the next part of the video. Let's recap on what we've learned. We've learned that a font is a system. We've learned basically how I've created most of these letters in here with the same aspect, so it looks similar. So we've used the same shapes and the same widths, same heights, and the overshooting parameters are all the same, as you can see inside of here, to create a nice font. The main things to keep in mind when designing a typeface or a font is consistency. Everything needs to be consistent. If you're creating the N, the way to keep things consistent between the N, M, I, A is to reuse shapes. If we look at the P, the B, the Q, we can see that all of these are basically the same, apart from in different orientations, and that's how we create a typeface. Now, if you'd like to purchase this typeface called Lockdown Sans, it was created during the lockdown, then go ahead and click the link down below. There are different pricing, so it's optional which one you want to go for, but the one that you should go for is this one, which is a variable font. Now, a variable font is different to this where you select certain weights, as you can click this button on the right and there's a slider to choose the weight that you want. All the way from 50 to 400, you've got different weights, and it's also got the italics in there as well. So if you'd like to purchase that, click the link down below. There'll also be some demo versions for you guys to check out. So there you go. There is a brief introduction into typeface design. If you're a logo designer or graphic designer getting into making fonts, it's a great way of creating a bit more income and also just sprucing up your portfolio and adding value to the surface that you can give. Please press that red subscribe button if you have enjoyed this video. Liking and sharing the video also helps me, also grows the channel and grows everything about this place. I've got a Discord called Creative Insiders. I hop on every now and then. It's a great community full of creatives who are professionals and also amateurs. So it's great to be in there to get critiques of your work. Now, instead of saying melons to prove that you guys have stayed to the end, I want you guys to write a title of a video that you wish I could do this year, a video that you want me to do, whether it's a design video, a font video, a hand lettering video, let me know down below. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Goodbye.
Wow.